everyone, and welcome to Online Smicha. Today we'll discuss halacha on this week's Parsha, Parshat Re'e. We find in this week's Parsha twice where it repeats the same mitzvah, the same isser. The Torah speaks about certain animals that might have been used as a carbon or kachim. To the pasuk in Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Tezayin says, "Rak hadam lo yiseichelu." Do not eat blood. Ala aretz tishbechenu kamayim. The blood should be spilled, should be poured on the ground kamayim, like water. This is in Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Tezayin. Later on in Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Chav Gimel, it seems to say the same thing, but it says it with a much harsher, much more careful isser. Rak chazak lebilti achol adam. Strengthen yourself. Be careful. Do not eat blood. Ki adam hu nefesh, because the blood is the soul. V'lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar. Now, lo yisoichal hanefesh im habasar is the isser of Eiver min achai. Ki adam hu nefesh. As you learn the halachas, which dam is the Torah prohibit? The Torah prohibits min ha-Torah and is isser lav, isser kares, is the dam sha nefesh yoytze boy. And then there is different levels. Which blood is the worst and which blood is lower down in the level. But over here we see it's mentioned twice, the isser of achilas dam. In the Torah in general it's mentioned 6 times. According to some Mefarshim, it's hinted even more than 6 times. Why does the Torah have to say it so many times? Is the Torah itself gives you an explanation by saying the words rak chazak lebilti achol adam. And Rashi says, mima shenemar chazak, since the Torah uses this lashon of chizuk, in other words, you're shvach in this, and you have to strengthen yourself. Ataloimed, you could learn shayu shtufim b'dam. At that point of time, everybody was eating dam. The people in Mitzrayim, as Rashi says elsewhere, everybody ate dam. It was a common practice. So to change your behavior, the Torah had to say chazak lebilti achol adam. And Rashi finishes off by saying that from this expression by the mitzvah of achilas dam, you could learn a tremendous lesson. Why? It teaches you about kol ha-Torah kula, how much chizuk you need. After all, dam is disgusting. It's ich. Nevertheless, the Torah is worried about your chizuk. Could you stand strong and not eat it? And the Torah tells you rak chazak. Im adam shehu kal lihishamim mimenu. If dam, which is something which is easy to stay awake, after all, it's disgusting. Ein adam misavaloi. People don't have a desire to eat blood. He had to give you chizuk to stay away from it. How much more so other mitzvahs, which a person never has a desire to want to do. How much chizuk you need for that? The Ramban says over here that the word chazak really doesn't fit, because the word chazak typically is give you chizuk. You're a bissel verschlafen. You're a bissel, if you don't have the chizuk to do something, we say chazak very much. But over here, it's the opposite. Chazak, do not eat blood. The word chizuk doesn't really fit. And the Ramban says that even though this is taken not the reason why you don't eat dam, there's other reasons, but the fact was that the reason why there was shtufim b'dam back then was because it was a form of avodah zarah. The Mitzrayim ate dam. They would speak to the shadim. They would tell you the future. So it was like a hocus pocus type of thing. So therefore, says the Ramban, the chizuk is chizuk in amunas Hashem. Believe in Hashem. Don't fall for all that garbage of the shadim and the hocus pocus. Have truth, emunah, and tmimus in Hashem Elikim. That's where the chizuk is. What is the halacha? Very simple. First, stay away from dam. But the Torah in both of these psukim says, "Ala aretz tishbechenu kamayim." Which dam is prohibited? dam which is liquidy, which could be poured on the ground. So if I were to find you some dam which is jello-ish, it's not liquid, for example, the liver. Liver, according to some understanding, the whole liver is a metzias of dam. It's jello-y blood. It cannot become as is liquid. So the point of ala aretz tishbechenu kamayim does not apply necessarily in kaved, in the liver. So that's the reason why in Shulchan Aruch and the Yeridea Simanai and Gimel, there's the whole discussion of the uniqueness of the kaved. From one hand, it's a shtick blood, it's all blood. From the other hand, it doesn't have this point that it's liquid blood. And we know that by the parts of the karbanos that you give to the kohen or you're allowed to eat, it's mentioned yoseres min hakaved, that as the kaved is edible. So it seems to be an exclusion to the whole problem of the Isser Adam. And there is a special set of rules how you kasher the blood from the kaved, or if you have to kasher it. So I want to touch upon one point in the liver. There's a whole section in Shulchan Aruch that discusses how you kasher a liver. If whatever you're going to do, it's still going to be left, and whatever is left is also down. The one nakuda I want to talk about is a machlokes. Typically, a regular piece of meat, from the shchita time until you salt it, you should not let it go vacant, unattended to, for 3 days. The salting process should be done within 3 days. There's ways to extend it, but the 3-day period, the 3-day gap is from the shchita until the salting. If you didn't do the salting within 3 days, you have an issue. You cannot cook it anymore. It has to be roasted. It has to be roasted because the blood got dried in. And in Mata Yonason, in Siman Samach Tes, Seiv Yud Beis in Shulchan Aruch, asks or brings a debate if the same rule will apply by liver. Because after all, liver has its own set of rules. Liver, some reason we are going to eat, even when there is some belief that whatever is left is also blood. Does the 3-day period also apply by liver? And it's nagei la halacha. Depending on this machlekes, who we paskin like, it happens quite often that you buy a raw chicken and the chicken livers are still inside, or you could buy a liver and you have to kasher it, and the roasting wasn't done yet. Typically, the malicha of a piece of meat and the malicha of chicken is done in the plants or in the butchers. But the roasting of the livers are not necessarily done. They expect you to do it at home. If the liver is 3 days away from the shchita, is it an issue too? And the Mata Yonason brings a machlokes. And he says it depends in this concept of 3 days. He says like this. In Shah Kaved Gimel Yomim Me'es Le'es Nami Asr Lavash Le'achar Tzli. To roast it after 3 days is not a problem. But chopped liver is also cooked. You're cooking the liver after it was roasted. That might be a concern, depending how you understand the issue of what will take place after roasting. If you're telling me that liver has its own set of rules, if it has its own set of rules, then even if you didn't do it right away within the 3 days, you roast it and then do whatever you want, then you could cook it. If, however, we are concerned, even by liver, that if it wasn't roasted, you didn't take care of it in its way within 3 days, then you're not allowed to cook it after the roasting. You have to eat it only roasted. That's a machlokes that Mata Yonason brings, and that's the halacha. There's a machlokes, so the halacha you find both shittas. It's definitely better to be careful. Yashar koyach. Please join us again next week.